Some big changes are coming for home buyers and sellers. The National Association of Realtors is removing the standard 6% commission on home purchases following a landmark court settlement. A federal court still needs to approve the settlement in the suit, but the sellers have argued that they did not want to pay buyer agent fees. We want to welcome in Lance Pendleton. He's the former national head agent of development for Compass Realty and a consultant now for agents. Lance, thanks for being with us. So explain this lawsuit to folks first before we get into exactly what it's going to mean and how it affects home prices.
Sure. Good morning, Tom. So the lawsuit really is predominantly centered around the concept that people don't want to have to pay a buyer agency fee when representation is presented to them when they think about buying and selling a home. So what happens across the board right now is, and the best way to really think about it is, if you think about currently other world scenarios, if I were to sue somebody and I was thinking about how I wanted to be represented through that process, would I want to actually pay for the attorney for the person that I was suing? Well, of course not. And in the flip side, if I were being sued by somebody, would I want them paying for the attorney representing me? Well, no, but right now that's how it kind of works within the world of real estate. So the primary thing for consumers to think about right now is, previously this concept of 6% and 5% isn't really real. It has always been something that should be separate, where there's seller representation and buyer representation. So the suit was centered around the idea that the National Association of Realtors and certain brokerages had been colluding and steering and educating agents to talk about commissions in a way that coupled those things together. So it was a real challenge and problem, and hence the loss of the suit with certain changes that are now being made.
And one of the questions probably a lot of people have about this is this ultimately going to lead to lower housing prices?
It can. In truth, there's so many things between here and the proposed settlement, and the big word is proposed, that is going to take effect in July. So it can, but the truth is we really need to be thinking more about how this is going to affect in the short term people's understanding of what options they have when seeking representation on the buyer side and in the seller side.
Now, was the National Association of Realtors, kind of dragged to the water on this one? Because it would seem, from one perspective, that it would be very lucrative to keep these fees in place.
It was dragged through a lot, and they're still going through a lot. The National Association of Realtors has had many problems over the past several years. It's difficult for the agent community and population to deal with it as well. But right now the bigger thing is consumers really need to be more aware of the idea that they have choices. And the difficulty has been that the National Association of Realtors needs to do better at explaining that those choices are available and educating agents to how to articulate that in a much clearer fashion. So it is really based and centered around better information and better education toward both the agent community and the consumers to open up more visibility to choice. Obviously,
transparency in pricing of just about anything is probably a better thing for consumers. What kinds of questions should they be asking now, given the fact that we have this settlement on the way?
Well, consumers need to identify first that their primary objective is to be able to negotiate what commission they want to pay with their seller representative first and foremost. The idea that a buyer's agent payment is somehow coupled together in this concept of 5% or 6% is at the root of what the problem is. So negotiating what your agreed payment is going to be for your seller representative is the most important thing that you have. And there are some phenomenal real estate agents out there who are well deserving of helping shepherd people through what is really the third most stressful time of a human being's life, with the single largest financial asset most people have. But they really need to get good at talking about what value proposition the agent is bringing and what they're doing in return for that commission.
Now, will there be any protections in place? Because if this, 6% goes away, it could be, theoretically likely that it's going to pop up someplace else. So moving forward, should people be aware of the fact that, it might wind up in some other part of their housing?
It could. I think it's going to take some time for these things to play out and to really see. The Department of Justice and the FTC haven't commented yet on these settlements. So it's going to be a little bit of time before a lot of this gets sorted. And I think some of the other fees that you may see in transparency are going to be a lot more conscientiously careful about how these things are placed in different areas. Because again, we can see the outcome of what happens now when people aren't fully aware of what fees are being charged of them.
It's a lot of good information. Lance Pendleton is a former national head of agent development for Compass Realty and now a consultant for agents everywhere. Lance, we thank you for shedding some light on this and getting us up to speed.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.